anytime, any day. Why not right now? Stop looking up to your boss and start being your own boss. Don't work for paychecks. Work for dreams with no regrets. This is Cracking the Entrepreneur Code. If you have the passion, we'll create the blueprint. Now, your host. You know him from his 7 tips to build the business you always wanted, and now you're about to hear a lot more. Jack H.M. Wong.
Welcome to the other episode of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Jack Wong, and the reason why I'm doing this particular episode on a topic which I resonate very well on entrepreneurship is called What's the Purpose, the Mission, and the Drives of Being an Entrepreneur. Very often, we always ask ourselves this question: what's the point of jumping out of the plane and venture out to something that is totally unknown, uncertain, and some of us have fear of making mistakes, right? So if you resonate with this, well, in this episode, I'm going to explain the concept of entrepreneurship. You know what? I've just returned from Vietnam. In the last episode, I talked about I was invited to speak in Bangkok. And you know what? As a direct result of the presentation in Bangkok, I was invited to speak continuously on the same topic in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, and I just came back. And thankfully, the reason why people actually stood up and said, I'm now going to the entrepreneurship, is somehow something that drives them. So if I were to describe my own story, I'm looking for something that I couldn't have as a result of being an employee. Well, I don't know about you. I'm just sharing with you how I see entrepreneurship. While people say entrepreneurship is about being uncertain, being unstable, not consistent, because every single day you might run into something which is not predictable. Well, of course, there are other principles we can apply to make this more certain, make it more predictable. But the fact is that it's not as stable as if I were to be an employee. So I know that. But having said that, thinking about if you have a bigger mission in your life, for example, my mission is to improve the quality of lives of other people. What game should I be playing? Should I play a game that is small or should I play a game that is big? I don't know about you. Let's think about this. And how many of you realize that you can play a bigger game in your life? So the question that I have for you is that if you are an employee, how big the game you can play? Perhaps you are constrained by what your boss has told you to do. Perhaps you are constrained by what the company's mission, vision has stated what you are expected to do. So you see, the thing is that you are set in a boundary within the context. Within the context, you can do anything that serves the company, serve your boss, and that's okay. So this is the game you can play. I don't think you are able to play a bigger game, bigger than the context that is set by the organization. And how many of you relate to this? Okay, thank you. So right now, imagine you have a very big game that you want to play and you are constrained by the context. You can do 2 things. Number 1, surrender to the organization and continue playing the game which the firm, the organization has asked you to do. Or alternatively, you can choose to jump off the plane because now you see the need of the people who want you to play a bigger game, and you feel very strongly that you have to play this bigger game. Like you have to serve a lot of people because you see these people really need help. And they said to you, Jack, I need your help. Okay, so if that's the case, why don't you consider going out of the organization and start your own business? You can set your mission, your vision, and play a bigger game. Or you may play a different game compared to what your existing company has told you to do so. So that being said, if you have the freedom to construct, design, and set the rules for your organization because you need to play this bigger game, how many of you would like to do that? So that is perhaps one reason why people would want to step out and then jump off the plane I always use the phrase called jumping out of the plane, because you can jump out of the plane and leave the corporate world just like what I did in 2011. And you will say there was actually no way back. Because if you think about it, if I say, well, I leave the corporate world and I step out and join and become entrepreneurship, you know what the subconscious mind said? Well, if something happens or if I screw up on something, I can always make a U-turn back to the corporate world. But once I jump out of the plane, there's actually no U-turn. Why? Because of the law of gravity. You can't like swim back to the plane and say, it is my safety net. There's no such thing, because once you jump out, that is it. You either jump out without parachute, or you can choose to jump out with the parachute so that you can survive and thrive next time, right? So that is one reason. And second thing that I look at entrepreneurship is, what do I do for other people? Now, I talk about playing a big game. That's true. And the second thing that I would like to talk about is like, do you see a need? Now, I was having this conversation yesterday with one of my business partners, and I thought it is a very interesting one, because the moment you said, well, I want to become an entrepreneur, I asked, why do you want to do that? Oh, okay, you want freedom. You want to have your own right or own way of doing things. Well, that is like coming from your perspective. I mean, playing a bigger game is also quite self-centered. You think about it, because I want to play a bigger game. But for what purposes? So you focus on the people out there and you say that, well, okay, my God, here is a problem I see in the market. You see that the market is giving you some signals, some ideas that there is a problem out there. For example, in these 2 months when I was in Bangkok, in Ho Chi Minh, and in Hanoi, I noticed one thing. A lot of people actually are thinking about being an entrepreneur, but they are very, very afraid of doing that. So I see the problem. The problem is that the traditional education has sabotaged our mindset. In other words, we are so afraid of making mistakes. So my job as a result of helping people by improving the quality of the lives of theirs, or helping to improve the quality of life of these people, my first job is to invite a conversation with the subconscious mind of these people. But you see, the point is that you have to talk to them, you have to convince their subconscious mind to begin to be aware of this little voice. This little voice could be, I'm not good enough, I'm so afraid of making mistake, and I am about to die if I jump out of the plane. You see, that is the problem. Because you can say the freedom of being an entrepreneur, the benefits for being an entrepreneur, but if you do not address to their subconscious mind, their so-called little voice, that's where the problem is. So when you speak to your client, when you speak to any prospect, the first thing you have to do is to have a conversation with the subconscious mind. And trust me, the subconscious mind of a person is a very, very powerful one. You may ask why. Good, thank you for asking. The reason why subconscious mind is so powerful is that how many of you have experienced from the past events? Or you may have experienced from other people's events. So for example, you and I may have this relationship before where you want to loan me money because I asked for it. And you know what? I didn't pay you back. So how many of you have this experience before? That you lent money to someone and the other guy never pays you back. I'm sure you have that experience before, right? So you see, the thing is that this unhappy incident and the emotion to that experience is stored in your subconscious mind. So later, when you're doing something, or perhaps an incident that triggers that particular emotion, which is attached to that incident, the unhappy incident, you will not know why, but suddenly the emotion will shoot up and say, I don't like this. And you answer, what happened? There's nothing wrong with the latest incident. It's the emotion that has been attached to the last incident that was not the pleasant one that triggered this emotional response. So it's very important to deal with your subconscious mind to address the issue. Now, of course, in our world, what we do in Blessedness Training Academy, while we have processes that allow people to deal with the subconscious mind, where we can do something called literal voice mastery, or if you want to actually remove the unhappy experience, there's a process called clearing process. And in future episode, I'm happy to talk about what clearing process is all about. I mean, if you think that is this something like reframing in neuro-linguistic programming, NLP? No, it's completely different process. And clearing process is a way to help us remove or to get rid of that unhappy incident. So it's a very powerful process. But meanwhile, the lesson that I would like to share with you in this episode is ask yourself, why do you want to jump off the plane and become entrepreneur? Are you willing to play a bigger game? And you need to do that because you need to serve more people. Your current context is not good enough for you to do that. So that is what we call a self-centered proposition. And second thing is that when you are serving people, first of all, you need to know what the problems are. The first thing you need to do is to have a direct conversation with the subconscious mind. How you do that? Well, there are techniques you can learn. It's not part of the purpose of this episode to deal with that. Having said that, it's always good to know there is a way, and you will find a way to deal with it. All right? So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comment, let me know. If you have friends, colleagues, or peers who you think will benefit from this episode, make sure you share with them. And you know what? Be relentless and continue play a bigger game for the rest of your life. Jack Wong here, and welcome to another episode of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast. See you soon.
To continue cracking the entrepreneur code, subscribe for more episodes and download the Amazon bestseller, Cracking the Entrepreneur Code, 7 Tips to Build the Business You Always Wanted at crackingentrepreneur.com. Learn more about author and host Jack H.M. Wong and book your 30-minute discovery session to overcome any professional challenge at jackhmwong.com/apply.